Welcome everyone to District 5020 training virtually here, and today's session is how to run successful hybrid meetings with Corey Laparty from Hawks Prairie Rotary. And most of you are familiar with Corey, but some of you may not be.
Thank you, Stephen, for that, and thank you all for being here today. I know what people are still filtering in, but I don't want to keep those who were punctual waiting any longer. So what we're going to cover today is what is a hybrid or a virtual in-person meeting, often referred to as a VIP meeting, but we're also going to talk about technical tips for different setups for clubs, and some tips for better hybrid meetings and how to engage online participants. And we'll also have a couple of chances for you to ask questions throughout the session. So let's talk about what a hybrid or a virtual in-person meeting actually is. So these are meetings held both in person and on Zoom in real time. And the key here is that they're not passive experiences like you may have held in meetings in the past. So if you've broadcast your meeting in the past, say via Facebook Live or on YouTube, that's not what we're talking about here today. These are active participant meetings. And the whole reason for VIP meetings is to support member engagement and retention. So when we talk about in the room at the in-person meeting, you're going to need to set a setup that includes laptops, projection, or an LCD screen. And you're going to need to make sure that announcements and presenters can be clearly seen and heard by your online participants. And you want to be thoughtful about your agenda and how it will relate to your online as well as in-person participants. It's going to require some extra personnel, cost, and more setup than your club may be used to. Your online participants will be interacting just like we are here today, and the AV setup in the room will allow them to see and hear what's going on just as if they were there in person. Now this is going to create dynamic interactions with all participants. It will require using a paid Zoom account by the club, but the District 5020 has made one available to each area, and your AG knows how to hook you up. So if you didn't know already that there is one, your AG can hook you up. Now let's take a look at the different setups you can use depending on your club's needs. And you can see right here, this is a Zoom meeting that was taking place back in the fall, back when a lot of clubs were able to try out this whole hybrid model. And we'll be using some of them as a way to show things off. So the first is a simple setup. Now this is one of our District 5020 clubs. The setup is for small clubs under 20 members and really doesn't require anything that you don't already have. The members who feel comfortable meeting in person can just bring their own devices and log in just as if they were at home. Now the key here is that only one person has their audio turned on, or you're going to get some crazy feedback at the in-person meeting. The setup also works just fine for committee meetings. So even if you've got a bigger club, but say you have committees of 10 or less, you may consider hybrid options for your committee meetings. Now the next is a basic setup. And for this, you'll want to use a projector and screen at your meeting venue, and you can use a cell phone on a stand, sometimes pointing at whoever is speaking. The key there is to make sure that cell phone can be turned towards your audience as well as your speaker. You want to make sure that speakers and people asking questions step up to the microphone and talk right towards the camera so that at-home attendees can see and hear them well. This setup works for clubs in the 20 to 30 member range as long as you're not having a meal at the same time. That meal at the same time tends to create a lot of background noise, and that makes it really hard for the online participants to hear what's going on in the room, even if you have a good room mic, but you need to have a bit better setup for that. So this setup works for clubs in the 20 to 30 member range. So the advanced setup you see here is from last fall when Rotary 1 in Chicago was testing out hybrid meetings. It's your typical projector and screen setup, but they also have multiple laptops, an audio and video mixer, and cameras on tripods. Now this setup does require some pre-meeting setup. It requires a trained team, and it'll take some more that we'll talk about a little bit later. And as you can see there, they're using audio and video mixers to make sure all of this funnels into one. Now the final setup is for if you have a venue or a member that already has a conference room set up with the Zoom room camera. Now these Zoom rooms, they'll allow about 10 people or so to be in person and viewing at home members on an LCD screen, as you see here in the photo. And then the Zoom camera moves around to focus on whoever's speaking. We're going to take a look now at a demonstration of how you can have an interactive virtual in-person or hybrid meeting. The following video is material from the Global Impact Group. It's been edited down by myself for, they had a presentation that was about 26 minutes long. I didn't figure we wanted to watch 26 minutes of video. So this is about 4 minutes that gives you the idea of the type of setup an average sized club might use.
This video shows one of 35,000 Rotary Club meetings taking place every week in 190 countries around the world with our 1.2 million members improving health, peace, our environment, education, and more.
Today is different, however. Today is a virtual in-person meeting.
This means that members may participate from the safety of their homes while connecting and speaking with members who are present at the meeting.
The Global Impact Group has teamed up with Loma Sunrise Rotary Club in California to create this video and to include a lineup of world-renowned speakers to tell a story of inspiration and aspiration for global health.
By the end of this video, you'll see both the simplicity
and the power of virtual connectivity.
For ourselves, for our communities, and for the world. Let's join our virtual in-person club meeting.
Welcome, Rotarians and guests, and greetings from Loma Sunrise Rotary Club at the garage of one of our members' homes. Today we have a landmark meeting for two reasons. First, we are being filmed to show how a virtual in-person meeting works, and second, we have a story of the history and future of public health with a group of world-renowned thought leaders joining us virtually across both space and time. I would like to introduce Jim Margroff to explain today's program and introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Conrad. The purpose of today's meeting is to show Rotary clubs around the world how easy it is to add virtual connection to your in-person meetings.
We start with our basic laptop, projector, speaker, and screen. We connect our laptop to our Zoom meeting. Then we plug in a high-quality microphone and a webcam facing our in-person members and guests. Finally, your president faces their laptop towards themselves, and a Zoom master, in person or virtual, runs the meeting. This is the setup we're using for this video. So in review, all that's needed to run a VIP meeting, beyond the laptop, speaker, projector, and screen that most clubs have, is a microphone, a webcam, a second laptop for the president, and a third laptop for a Zoom master. And note that the president or Zoom master could be physically present in the meeting or remote connected on Zoom. Now let's provide some detail on the mic and webcam. We recommend a Blue Yeti omnidirectional microphone. When centrally located, it can capture audio from anyone speaking in the room and is the only microphone used. We recommend a Logitech C920 webcam given its cost, resolution, and field of view positioned next to the screen. Now let's provide some detail on Zoom settings for the three laptops. The club laptop must be configured in Zoom to use the external webcam and microphone. The president's laptop should have its microphone on mute and audio off. The Zoom master should also have their microphone on mute and audio off. Finally, the club laptop should be set to speaker view within Zoom, and the president should be on Zoom speaker view. The magic in this setup is that the webcam and mic allow remote participants to see and hear all in-person members, and in-person members can see remote Zoom participants on the screen. Proper placement of the webcam and mic allow anyone in person to step forward facing the webcam and screen and speak to all virtual participants, while also being seen on the screen by in-person participants. If a club wants to accommodate more than 50 or even 100 people, depending upon the number of Zoom participants, a more sophisticated configuration can be used.
As our clubs resume meeting in person, we must continue to provide virtual access to support our most vulnerable members and to open our doors for greater inclusion, embracing our interdependence and our power of our common Rotary voice.
All right, so at this time, I'd be happy to answer a few tech-related questions that you might have.
First question I have, can that web address for that, can it be put in chat? That was on that last slide.
Yes, I have it up there a little later in the presentation, and I'll be
Okay.
happy to put it into the chat when we get to that point.
Okay. And for cost for the equipment, that's all on the club to take care of all that. There's no any kind of subsidy through Rotary or anything like that. I mean, it's not that expensive, I don't think, but just for smaller clubs.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the cost is on the club. You know, it's interesting. We've been getting at the zone level a little bit of pushback from clubs, and I know certain districts are looking at ways that they can make it a little more cost effective, and I'm sure that District 50 moving forward will look at that as well. But you know, Rotary's managed to go all over the world and inoculate so many children with polio. We've done so much good work. We could spend a little bit of money focused on our own members and making sure that we give them good hybrid meetings. I think if we can end polio, we can probably put on some decent hybrid meetings. So
Agreed. Yeah.
It looks like we have a couple people. Walt has his hand up.
Yeah, is this arrangement the same one that was in the paper that was presented on the district website on how to do hybrid Zoom?
So it's not exactly the same. It's a little bit different. And you know, one of the things that's come up is that there are so many different needs that different clubs have, depending on venue, depending on size and number of members. And so there isn't exactly one setup, but I really wanted to show you a setup that you could mimic with the equipment. And the key really to this setup is that you use the 3 laptops. You have a Zoom master who's either in the room or outside the room, and that you consider your online members just as important as your in-person. But yes, we do have guides. The district has one, the zone has one, this group has one, and we're working to put together a little bit more comprehensive amount of documentation. And my guess is sometime in April that will be available. But we do have materials that will be sent out now. So let's see here. Suzanne has her hand up.
Thanks, Corey. I have an IT team that I put together, and they're way above my pay grade. But as I understand them, they're recommending a camera called Owl, which as I understand it, like an owl's head, it rotates around the room to capture everybody almost on voice command. If anybody's familiar with that, yeah, that would be my first question, I think.
So there are definitely a number of those systems, and they tend to run a little bit more cost-wise than the one that was demonstrated in that video. Again, it really is up to the club. Some clubs have gone to just using cell phones for the in-room camera, and they'll have a person actually hold it on a selfie stick, and they can focus it on the person who's at the podium or the person who's viewing. So there's multiple ways to handle that. It really is up to how the club, how much they want to invest money-wise.
And then, so part of that, they were recommending we buy a separate television, but as I understand it, they were thinking the Owl camera would just take a picture of the television, which would be showing the speaker's slides. But it seems to me there ought to be a way to I'll say hardwire, at least connect, not have to take a picture of a TV monitor.
Correct, yes, and that is the benefit of using Zoom as your technology hub, if you will. You run your presentation through Zoom so that you would see it in person and on screen at home just like you are today. And you don't have to point a camera at it that way.
Thank you.
I got David Eatwell.
Yes. I actually worked in TV for 20 years. And if you have a problem with a lot of room noise, there's an old audio tech trick that you get a small mixer, a 2-input mixer. You can get them very, very cheaply now, and take one microphone and tape it to the back wall. But first, you have to break the wires down and wire it into the system. Reverse the wires so it's 180 degrees out of phase, and it will cancel all of the room noise in the room, and all you will hear is the speaker. Even though people are eating and making lots of noise, cars are driving by, whatever your ambient noise is, that out of phase microphone will cancel out everything, except you'll have a nice clear speaker voice.
Dave, can you repeat this again with this, what the input mixer does? How do you have to rewire it?
I'll go ahead and, yeah. What David's describing is basically the same way that noise canceling headphones work. You reverse the audio that's coming in, it creates a phasing, if you will, and all you hear is what's in the middle of that, which is your speaker. All the rest of the noise, and Zoom's doing that right now. It has its own background noise canceling, and it does the exact same thing. So thank you, David. Yes, that's definitely a tech tip. If you are having problems, you'll need someone who understands that technology to set up that microphone. But it works just like noise canceling headphones. Charles New.
Yes, Corey. So in our physical meeting place, we have an LCD television that is on the wall that we use for our presenters, our programs, to show any slides or things that they have. So if the computer's hooked, so we usually hook our laptop to that so they can show their slides. But what would we have to do if we wanted to be able to use that for that and for the Zoom meeting?
So all you would do differently is in that diagram that was shown in the video, you would replace the projector and screen with that LCD screen. And so your in-room computer would be your dedicated Zoom computer that would go to that screen. You would still need the computer for your Zoom master, and you would still want the computer on the podium for the camera or a dedicated camera in lieu of that computer for your presenter. But yeah, you would just replace the projector and the screen with the LCD.
Okay.
Ken Walker.
Thanks, Corey. Good to see you again. We meet when meetings start again in a small community hall that we own. And the Wi-Fi that we get there comes, Shaw in Canada has a network of free Wi-Fi hookups. So the Wi-Fi is supplied by them. I wonder whether it can be taken for granted that one of those hotspots is going to handle the load that Zoom would put on it.
Honestly, it all depends, and I would do some tests. You're going to be best off if you can do direct Ethernet to your laptops that are in the room. Also knowing that with 3 laptops all pulling from that Wi-Fi, that bandwidth is going to go away quite quickly with the 3 different devices. So that does make one of the challenges to have those devices. But if you have the ability to have a Wi-Fi expander or any way to get that internet and then have a splitter or a router, you can usually plug in multiple devices that way. We do have, and I'll mention this later, there's a tech team for the district, and so those are the type of questions where you're getting that specific. The tech team is probably more who you want to talk to. There's a question in the chat before we move on to Eileen. Can you use a cell phone for one of the computers in the room? You can use a cell phone for the laptop that's at the podium for your speaker, but otherwise the Zoom master and the computer that's running the whole meeting in the room, that's providing the signal that goes out to your screens, those both need to be either laptops or dedicated computers. Cell phones are not going to work for those two. So Eileen.
Hi, Corey. I wondered about we've talked a little bit about the noise cancellation, and does that also relate to what happens when you get other technical instruments in the room, or different laptops, different phones?
So that will not solve the problem of feedback.
Okay.
So feedback is only solved by having one device with the open audio. All the other devices have to be closed audio.
Okay.
Bill Potter.
Corey, thanks. Sorry about the visual part, but I'm curious if anybody's tried to really stretch the limits of how many people you can get in a room in front of one device. we'd like to have pods where we have 3 to 10 people, especially since folks are getting vaccinated up, where they'll participate. But obviously you can't have that many people on their own devices because of the nasty feedback. And the screen and the camera and the microphone and the speaker on a laptop only goes so far. And we can't really spend thousands and thousands of dollars for a web meeting setup for each potential pod that we would have. Any advice or experience on that would be really welcome.
Okay, that may be a question I have to do some thought, and we can discuss offline, because it sounds like you're really trying to run maybe 6 or 7 or 8 individual meetings at once versus the type of hybrid meeting that we're discussing here. If you're talking pods, like people in different rooms, then that's a whole nother animal. And we'd be happy to consult on that. I mean, for instance, there's a club that I'm talking to down in California. They have 200 plus members, and they're looking to probably have to have a 3 or 4 camera setup with a video mixture and audio mixtures, multiple wireless mics, because they're going to have 50 to 100 people in the room, as well as all the rest of their members at home. So, you know, there are needs that are above and beyond what we have the ability to talk about today. What we're shooting for today was kind of a middle of the road. The average club size is 35 to 50, and so that was kind of the setup we were looking at today. But feel free to reach out, and we can definitely consult on that.
Thanks.
Is it Gunda?
Yeah, Gunda. Thank you, Corey. I think we'll be looking at an advanced setup. Basically, we have one LCD screen, we have a laptop, and that's about it. And then maybe go on Zoom and have people who are off-site join us in the Zoom meeting. And I think that probably should be working as well, right?
Yeah, I think that is definitely an option that sounds valid.
I mean, we really can't afford any big layouts for the Logitech and everything else you mentioned.
Well, I mean, the
setup.
Logitech mic was mentioned because it's less than $50.
Yeah.
I mean, the Logitech camera. I mean, the setups that we're you know, asking basic clubs to look at, the largest cost is usually the laptops, and usually clubs can pull 2 or 3 laptops together. The rest of the equipment, we try to keep it under $500. That's where the recommendations come from. So please keep in mind that we're not suggesting that every club needs to spend thousands of dollars. There are affordable ways that clubs can do a very good option. We have time for maybe one more question, and maybe I can get to one of the chats. So Glenn?
Thanks, Corey. I just wanted to confirm, did you say you're going to send this out to us? I'd be interested in the diagram that reflects the setup from the movie.
Yeah, so the materials will go out today. It's also being recorded, so I'm sure at some point the session will be made available to view again. Yes, we have a number of guides, and they do include layouts and things.
Thank you.
All right. And then I wonder about hooking up the audio for the VIP system to the existing audio in the meeting room. That would be a case-by-case basis, but there's no reason why you couldn't integrate in-room audio into your setup, depending on what that in-room audio is. So again, that would be something where I would encourage you to reach out to our tech group so that you can get those answers. So thank you all for that. Great participation. And now, at this time, it's time for some discussion. So the question that we really want to work on today is, how can we make hybrid meetings more engaging to the online participants?
Corey, while we're waiting, I just have one thing that's popped in my head that I'm really concerned about. Is you're saying we're going to have basically 3 people at each meeting, and I'm really concerned about having 3 people at every meeting being responsible for doing this. I'm really feeling that that's going to be a stretch for our club.
Well, how big is your club?
We're about
27.
We're at 27 people, but we typically get about 16 at our Zoom meetings. So
there's a few core ones, but it varies quite a bit who actually shows up at the meeting.
Ah, that's my club president speaking.
Yeah.
Well, I
checked in.
think we've got everyone back, and I'm excited to hear what everyone came up with. But if we don't get a chance to hear from everyone, please put your thoughts and ideas in the chat, and we'll collect all of that. Stephen, who's first up? And you're muted, Stephen, so if you were letting me know, I didn't hear it.
I'm sorry, room 10, Gunda. And Gunda, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm muted. Yeah, I'm Gunda. Yeah, we had a good discussion, but there really wasn't too much to discuss about because only one participant already started with hybrid meeting in April last year. And she said it is a very small group. And she basically asked everybody one by one if anybody had to say something. So engaging 100% of our members. Everybody else had no hybrid meetings, lots of questions, how to do it, how to organize it, what do we do when we have a meal and the external people don't have a meal, do they watch us eating? You know, it's just something, you know, you worry about. What is the noise?
I think that's a great thing to bring up is that, you know, in the past, so much of our meetings have been focused around meals. And, you know, a lot of the new clubs that are starting are not focused around meals. And maybe as we look at this hybrid, we really have to ask, is a meal essential to what we're doing, and having an in-person meal versus people at home? Or are there ways that we can take that time and do something else and then start the meeting after the in-person people have taken some time to eat? Definitely things to consider. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, there's another thing when you bring about meals. We cannot get a room without ordering meals. So there is, you know, we have to order meals. We are guaranteeing certain number of meals, even if the members don't show up. And each member in our club has to pay for meals, even if they're there or not there.
Okay. Okay. So definitely a challenge then in clubs that that have that as a restriction. Thank you. Stephen, who else do we have?
Group 7 didn't choose a scribe, but does anybody want to step up and give a quick report?
Are we supposed to tell you if we're the scribe, Stephen?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
So group 7.
I could say that we talked about that most of us really liked Zoom, and that our attendance had increased, especially initially, and maybe it's fallen off a little bit now. We found the tech for hybrids, even though the idea is really great, the tech for hybrids a little bit overwhelming, and not knowing how that's going to work and whether we would always have people to take care of that every week, just like you've just said. There was an indicator that people are making sure that members receive the notes from any meeting. So that kind of covers it and tries to include people a little bit more. Some groups put out bulletins, and they have weekly bottle drives, which has really helped with the social interaction. Thanks.
Great.
And just one other comment from group 7. We got talking, Eileen summarized it really well, and we got talking right away and didn't name a scribe, so you did a great job, Eileen. But one thing we also mentioned was that it worked really well with speakers. Because you could have speakers from anywhere in the province or around the world, and they could join on Zoom and do presentations and that kind of thing. So it definitely did give us much more scope to engage speakers to attend our meetings.
So if you could put in the chat, Eileen, what a weekly bottle drive was. Somebody had a question about that. Go ahead and just put it in the chat. And Stephen, if you could call on the next person.
Ken Walker, I believe you're in room 4.
I was going to guess it was room 4, but I didn't want to be the second room 4, so I didn't. So we had a good discussion. We had a lot of discussion about how valuable Zoom is as a method of meeting and all of the advantages that it has, but that's not really the question we were asked, I guess, but it seemed to come up quite a bit through our discussions. One of our group has attended a Zoom meeting, and they found that it was, the experience was that there was some issue with keeping the people in the room engaged with the people that weren't in the room, as opposed to the direction this question was going, which is how do we keep the people outside engaged? And several emphasized the importance of the chair of the meeting needs to be involved in that, and as in any other kind of meeting, invite people to engage and participate about particular issues. And it came back to being key that the chair is alive to it. One issue I raised, which Corey's also raised, is if you've got a bunch of people meeting on Zoom and a bunch of people meeting and having breakfast, it's not only the noise of the cutlery that's an issue. The people that are meeting on Zoom, what are they going to be doing while the rest of them are eating? And I think Corey's hit the nail on the head there. Some of us were concerned whether bandwidth would be a problem. The rest of my notes, I'm not sure I can read, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ken, and I think your group definitely raised some of the issues and concerns, and you know the bandwidth is definitely something that's going to be a club by club and venue by venue, but you know, one of the reasons why I threw out this topic is that I want clubs as they're moving forward to think about both groups equally. You know, people are definitely in a hurry in some areas to get back to meeting in person, and they forget that maybe a good portion of their club isn't going to be as big of a hurry. And if you just go back to the way all your clubs were run before, you're probably leaving out those people that aren't there in person. So thank you. You definitely, the things that we have to consider. Who else do we have, Stephen? We've got a few more minutes.
We have Tracy from Group 8.
Okay, yeah, I scribe once in a while. So one of the most intriguing things that was brought up was Port Townsend's use of closed captioning. We're going to really look at accessibility being a key reason to do this moving forward. Being able to read what's happening as well as see it, because I don't know if you noticed, but if you have your speakers up too loud, you're going to have huge feedback, no matter who you are. And this way, somebody with a hearing impaired situation could be more comfortable in being involved in the meeting. So I really like that. The other great suggestion that our club does as well is we have a social period prior to the actual meeting beginning. Some clubs have it as long as a half an hour. Ours is 15 minutes, involves a little music, and people can just pop in and catch up a little bit before the formal meeting starts. We did have other discussions not relevant to the question, but more about overcoming obstacles that we can save for another time.
Thank you. Stephen, anybody else?
Yeah, we have Suzanne in Group 5.
Okie doke. I didn't know I was going to be the scribe, so I'll see if I can read my handwriting. I think we decided that hybrid meetings will continue long-term for some of the reasons already stated. It's easier to get speakers and it is convenient for some members to be there. So this is an opportunity that is going to continue. Therefore, it is worth some expense to clubs to invest. It's not just something we're going to use for another couple weeks and then throw out. The microphones we talked about, or the cameras, somebody uses a Logitech 933 and somebody else either uses or has looked at the Owl 360 because of a classroom experience, but that could be about $1,000 for a camera. So that may or may not be in a club's budget, but it seems very user-friendly and helps focus on everybody in the room for the folks who are at home. We did raise the question about a Zoom master. That seemed a little bit cumbersome, and somebody kind of facetiously, but it may not be a bad idea, contact one of our Interact students and they might be just brilliant at doing something like that. And then someone else, there are tech issues that seem, you know, we always say you've got to mute, unmute, you know, these technical issues that even after a year, many folks are not particularly comfortable with. somebody who's doing hybrid meetings, they meet for about a half an hour before the meeting to iron out tech issues that come up at every meeting. So that's a little bit concerning. So there certainly are some challenges with doing this. It's going to take some dogged determination, I think, and perseverance, but it's going to work long term to make our club better, more accessible.
Thank you. And you know, the Zoom master question there, it brings up a topic that I think is great for discussion, is that, you know, when we go back to doing any meeting in person, and we've had the ability to meet like we have now, you know, having meetings has required so fewer responsibilities. And a lot of clubs, you know, I've attended clubs in the past where there might be 8 people at a front table, all taking on some small little responsibility to keep everybody in the club busy. And do we really need to do all those things we were doing in the past? Can't 3 of those tasks maybe be done by one person, and then all of a sudden you've freed up 2 other people to be involved in actually making the meeting work for the rest of your group? So something to consider, that, you know, we've got a lot of dogma in our clubs, we've got a lot of practices in our clubs, and all of those went away a year ago. And how many of them do we need to bring back, and can we replace some of those responsibilities with these tech opportunities we have to really make our meetings better for both groups? So we have Richard with his hand up, but did we have any other rooms that we missed, Stephen?
Yeah, we have room 6, Joanne.
Okay.
Good.
So Joanne, this is Jan. Joanne led us, but I was a scribe and took the notes. So I'll just summarize here and Joanne can jump in. I think that first and foremost, that's important for us to think of today as we're using Zoom, but also in the future as we do hybrid, is to provide more information on what's going to happen at that meeting. So the people that are on Zoom, and especially we're in the hybrid, the people that are on Zoom are feeling full of anticipation that they know what is going to go on. And I've thought about that myself for our meetings, that we don't do anything like that. We just make it happen. One of the things we've been doing, we're a lunch club, but what we're doing is starting our meeting at 12:30, our business meeting, like we would normally, and lunches before that. So we're going to have to figure that out too. The Oak Bay Rotary is the only one in our group that has done a hybrid already. Congratulations to you. And they had about 20 people in the room and 20 on remote, and it worked very well for them. So we also talked about, do we have members, longtime members out there that don't know how to Zoom and don't know how to use a computer, that aren't participating today, and how to re-engage them? And Pam talked that they're going to be doing workshops to make sure everybody is trained up on Zoom. And it was also brought up that I think somebody already talked about that, closed captioning is important, because I know in our club we have a lot of older members with hearing aids, and that is a challenge. So I really appreciate that note. I took that and underlined it. And let's see, I think there was, I think that covered it, unless Joanne, you want to add something on.
Well, thank you, Jan. I think you touched on a number of things that are coming up, and so appreciate that. We do have Richard with his hand up, and then we'll need to move on. And so if you have any other thoughts, please put those in the chat. Richard?
Yes, there were just a couple of things. There was a question about cameras, and I was the one that supplied the information, and the information I supplied was incorrect. We're using a wide-angle Logitech camera that I purchased for my own purposes, which we use for our meetings as well. and it's a Logitech C930E. It's about $160 Canadian, and I'm using it right now. The picture's pretty good, even with a background. It's not blurring the background too much, and I can move easily within it without causing a lot of visual problems. The other thing is regarding closed captioning. I use hearing aids, and my hearing aids have the capability of plugging into my computer or my phone or my television set. So, you know, they have speaker as well as microphone capabilities. So perhaps some members who have hearing aids have that capability in the hearing aids and may not be aware of it.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Richard, and thank you all. This is an image from Oak Bay Rotary when they were allowed to have hybrid meetings. They were limited to 20 members per meeting in person, mandated by the hotel, and had several policies in place like no singing, no passing of items, no handshakes, hugs, symptom checks, hand sanitizers, etc. So those are definitely things that you want to think about. So let's look at some tips for you to take prior to your hybrid meetings. You want to make sure that you send out meeting invites well in advance, especially if your in-person meeting space has an attendance limit. That may be where you come up. I saw a question in the chat is how do you decide? Maybe it's on a first come first serve. Maybe it's on a rotating schedule. But if you don't put out those meeting invites well in advance, people don't have a chance to opt in or opt out of meeting in person. You want to make sure to reach out to members who are Zooming to make sure they haven't had any difficulties with Zoom, and I've heard a lot of conversation and seen a lot in the chat about that and about teaching our members how to use Zoom. You also want to send out your agenda in advance. I think Jan touched on this. In advance of meetings so members at home can follow along. And you want to make sure that you test your setup well in advance as well, so that when you get to the meeting date, you don't go, oh, well, it's not working. I guess those at-home people are just going to miss out today. Because that's the worst thing we can do, is not provide a good experience for the people who can't make it to the meeting in person or don't feel comfortable to make it there. So during your hybrid meeting, you want to be conscious to incorporate your online members into the meeting, like we've said, and make sure speakers use the microphone. We all know that there's those presenters that say they are loud enough, they can speak without it. This doesn't work at all when you've got people zooming in trying to hear what's going on. You want to make sure that the whole room can be seen with your camera or phone. And like we said before, if there's going to be meals and background noise, you need to have a more advanced mic setup than just the one we had in the video. There was the mention of doing some phasing with mics. You'll need somebody who understands electronics and how to rewire a microphone to make that happen. There's not a specific device for that. And you also want to remember to keep your presentations shorter than you might have in the past, especially if you have a speaker attending virtually. They may have a deadline, and if you're taking time out of a meeting time for people to eat or to do other things, there's not going to be as much time for a speaker as maybe we've had in the past. Some tips. You probably need to have a dedicated Ethernet connection, and we talked about that. And your Zoom master is going to need to act as your virtual host or greeter. That's one of the reasons to have that position, is to decide. I saw a question about who decides who gets pinned or who gets featured, and that's your Zoom master's job to do that and to understand what's going on. But they're also the virtual greeter to make sure that everybody who's attending via Zoom doesn't have questions, is being taken care of, that their technology is working like Stephen is doing for us here today. Without that, you've just got a bunch of boxes of people on the screen that aren't any more interactive than if they were just viewing this passively, and we want to avoid that. So our district has a tech team that can assist you with any further questions about hybrids. There are tech resources also on our Zoom website, which is listed here. And I also wanted to include the info for the Global Impact Group. And I said I would put it in the chat, so here it is, thegig.org, the Global Impact Group. And you can watch their 26-minute hybrid meeting that they did. They had RI President Holger on that meeting. They had John Hugo on that meeting. They had past RI presidents as well as people from public health all over the world. So it's an interesting meeting. Topic-wise, it was a bit long for today's, but you can really see the benefit of having an in-person and a virtual meeting going on at the same time. As well, follow-up materials will be made available, including this slide deck, as well as some equipment suggestion guides. So now with the remaining time we have left, I'd like you to open up for any additional questions. And I see Don has had his hand up for a while. Donald?
Well, I had my hand up because I was the unofficial scribe for our group.
Well,
So
let's
I'll
hear
finish
from you
up.
then.
Well, all right. I think the main two things we came up with, one negative and one positive, and that is that we were wondering how to handle clubs that have dinners charged to their dues. And that would present some problems. But the good news is that you can have speakers from all over the world come to your club meeting. Witness what Bainbridge Island, where I belong, did last week, invited the whole district to our club meeting, and we had Jennifer Jones as a speaker. I hope you all heard her. She was terrific. And so hybrid clubs can be very inclusive. Those were the two main things that we came up with.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. I believe Charles New had his hand up next.
In reference to the mics, there's the omnidirectional room mic, and then you talked about a speaker mic. Where does the speaker mic hook up to?
Yeah, so the omnidirectional mic is if you're having a small meeting where you're going to have 15 or 20 people in person, then you can get away with one mic set in the room that hears everything that's going on. If you're having a situation where you're going to have more people in person, or you're going to have meals and other noise going on at the same time, then you're going to need a mic at your podium for your speaker, president, presenters, as well as a mic or more for those people in the room who want to ask questions or interact later on in the meeting. And so all of that goes into a small mixer, which also goes into your computer. That's a bit more advanced setup than we're talking about today, but that's how you would do it. You would run those mics into a mixer, and then the mixer goes into the computer.
Okay.
I see Walt has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm looking for a good way to do awards on Zoom.
Okay.
We've tried a lot of different things, tried a split screen mode and all, and it just didn't work. So the presenter, like we got to do Paul Harris's, the DG's coming. So how do you, looking for a good method, Zoom method to do things like that until we can do it face to face. And if anybody's got any good ideas, I'd appreciate it.
All righty. If anybody has got any ideas for Walt there on how to do Zoom awards, either put them in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll take as many hands as we have time for. I see Kathy's got her hand up.
I actually just had a little light bulb moment that I wanted to share.
Ooh, we love those.
One of the things that's a bit difficult about being a Rotarian is the cost of our meals. And I was thinking, with Zoom now, there is no cost of meals, and it kind of opens the door for us to invite people that perhaps couldn't afford to pay the $20 a week for meals. I just think it's an opportunity for us.
Yeah, and what we're seeing across the country is that more and more clubs are either converting or starting out without a meal in place, and a lot of them are starting as e-clubs, or they're going to a hybrid model if they were a traditional meeting in-person club, to where they can do more online. Maybe they'll have a in-person hybrid, but all their committee meetings are taking place virtually. And so we are seeing a lot of models changing. And while that's not the topic for today, I encourage people to reach out if they have questions about that. Because yeah, there's no Rotary requirement, if you look in Rotary's policies and procedures, that there has to be a meal with a Rotary meeting. So it's really up to the club to decide how they want to handle that. I see in the chat, yes, Zoom has added the option to spotlight multiple people at once. It could be a way to present awards. That's not a bad idea. You can have up to, I want to say, 6 or maybe it's 9 people spotlighted all at the same time. Induction is a similar problem, how to make it more exciting for new members. Any ideas? Has anybody done any exciting inductions? I know our district has brought in lots of new members in the last year. Anyone have something to share along that line?
Yeah, I do, Corey. This is Kelly from Lacey Rotary. We did a big induction of 6 new members last month. Last month, and we really struggled with that idea because it was a big deal for us, and we didn't want it to be underwhelming. And so what we ended up doing actually is we upgraded our Zoom account to webinar, and we did that meeting as a webinar. So the new members were all kind of in front and center of all our members the whole time. We also called every member in the club to try to get more attendance. So the new members felt welcome, and it worked. We had a really big turnout. So, but that worked well for us. We did have to pay a little more for that. Yeah, we just upgraded to webinar membership for a month, but so we were happy with how it worked.
That's great. I like the idea of using technology to solve the problem just by upgrading to the webinar. I also see in the chat that some people are using induction packets and gift bags and then being inducted on screen. So I like that. You know, who doesn't like getting their Amazon Prime delivery during the day? So if you can work that into how you induct new members, I say go for it. Let's see here. Joan Peggs. Joan.
Corey, what we did we've done a couple of times with new members is that the secretary has actually taken the membership package and they're pinned to them. And the person who's being inducted has had like a family member there at the meeting time. So when it's time to put the pin on them, then that it's not a Rotarian pinning them, but the family member is pinning them. So you're trying to duplicate as much as you possibly can the situation that would happen in a regular meeting.
That's great. I also saw that somebody suggested an unboxing video, which I think is a great idea. Wouldn't it be fun to put together custom induction packages based on people's interests and what we know about them or think we know about them, and sending that out to our members that are new and having them open those on screen for all the other members to see and partake in. It's almost like a little mini Christmas. I like the idea of something like that. Chuck Henry.
Yeah, we have a couple of bicycle riders in our club who have delivered Paul Harris fellowship pins and induction packages to folks. Nice and clean and healthy.
Great, thank you. And Eileen.
We've done some of those things, sending packages to their home and not letting them know that they're there until we actually have the opening at about 7:30. But the other thing that's really worked for us is that we've gone around to each of the members and had them say something to the new member or say something to the Paul Harris recipient. Oh. And that has been amazing, I got to tell you. And you only have about 20 seconds or something, but it makes such a difference, and it makes them feel more engaged, and also it makes the person, I think, we've gotten feedback that they felt so welcome in a time when they couldn't shake in anybody's hand. So I think that's something to do.
I like that idea. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions on hybrid meetings from anybody today?
I have a question. One of the problems that we have in our meeting is a lot of fumbling around when we try to pull up a video. There always seems to be some big delay when the moderator is getting the video ready and starting it up and so on. Have you solutions for that?
Yeah, I have a couple of solutions. One is Mac-based, and that is that if you use Keynote and you just build videos into presentations, they run a lot smoother and are a lot easier to pull up versus trying to find them. Also, there are ways to download videos off of YouTube. I suggest never playing a video directly off of YouTube during in-person or a hybrid meeting. You're just asking for problems if you do that. And then if you go into the Zoom settings and the share settings, there is an advanced setting now, and you can have the video ready to play in the background, and you can share directly to a video using those advanced settings, and it makes video playback work way better if you don't have it built into your Keynote or your PowerPoint. So those are the ways that I would suggest handling video playback. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for attending today. And let's give a big hand for Stephen Bow, our session support. Thank you, Stephen. I hope you had a great day so far with the 4 sessions and that you're heading to the 5th one with bated breath. So thank you so much. Enjoy your last session and have a great rest of your day.